Death and life in the power of the tongue.
Speak life.
Death and life in the power of the tongue.
Speak life.
Death and life in the power of the tongue. Live your life, love Christ, do your best to
Speak life.
Death and life in the power of the tongue.
Speak life.
Death and life in the power of the tongue.
Speak life.
Death and life in the power of the tongue. Live your life, love Christ, do your best to
Speak life.
Hello and welcome back to the Speak Life podcast. We're excited to have you with us for another wonderful week. I am your host, Minister Phoenix, alongside my guest co-host for today. I don't have my, beautiful wife with me here today, but I do have this handsome young brother right here. And I got my man David Edwards with me today, and we're going to have an amazing day today. Introduce yourself to the people.
So I'm David. It's good to be here. Minister Phoenix, it's an awesome thing to be with you guys today on the Speak Life podcast. I'm excited. Let's get it.
Yeah, man, just appreciate having you, So before we get started, we got to shout out all of our listeners, all our subscribers, all the people who tune in week after week just to hear us ramble on. We appreciate y'all. If it's your first time, make sure you like. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you drop a comment so you can be part of the conversation, And I'm going to just do a quick shameless plug for the book. If you haven't gotten the book.
Got to get it.
If you haven't gotten the book, go get the book. When Three Roads Collide. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on iTunes, Google Books. It's a good read, so it's on Goodreads. Ha, you see what I did there? Yeah,
I see it, man. Yeah, they got to get it, man. They got to get it.
I'm telling you, it's an amazing book. Go check it out. All right, now today, I say this every week, but today we're going to get a little deep. We got a real deep topic. I think it's a deep topic that we're going to talk about today.
I think so.
So we're going to talk about fatherhood, but mainly we're going to talk about raising black men. And I say raising black men because there comes a point in society where our boys go from being looked at as being children to directly to being men. It's kind of like they skip the teenage years and they're like, oh, this ain't a black boy anymore. This is a black man. So I got two boys. I'm raising two black men. You raising two black men.
Two black boys.
And with everything that's going on, I feel like this is going to be a real interesting topic, and I think it's pretty necessary.
Absolutely.
All right. So just to start off our conversation with raising black men, what are some of the things you try to instill in your sons?
So I think naturally, and this is just, whether I was black or I wasn't black, right? I think number one thing that I've always tried to instill in Kingston and Kobe is, to love God first, right? Put God first, and to love others, regardless of what they look like, where they come from, what their background is, to love others. That's just those are my two big things.
I think those are necessary. That seems like it would be common sense, right?
Absolutely. I'd say those are the two things.
I always look at it and I'm like, as a father, no parent wants to raise trash kids. And what I mean,
right? Absolutely.
I gotta take off my glasses for this one, but that's the fact. No one wants to be like, yo, I failed as a parent. I tried to raise these kids and they just turned out a hot mess.
Right.
So I look at my sons and I'm like, with that being said, I'm like, I always want to try to raise a child with some sort of integrity and like
Absolutely.
On the lines of being able to love people, and love God and respect people. I think respect goes a long way in just how we raise our kids. And I think that's something that I really try to put inside of them. There's a lot of other things, but I think with how I've experienced God, I think raising them with that faith is definitely something that I would want them to experience. Now, my parents, I'm going to tell y'all a story about my parents. Like my parents somehow sent all of us to Catholic school. But they never like had a specific like faith that they would like try to instill with like in us. And I asked my mother this one time. I was like, what was the point of that? Like, why would you send us to Catholic school? First off, y'all don't go to church, like none, not near nothing. And she was like, I figured, if I sent you to Catholic school, at least you'd have some sort of structure for your life.
Right. That's exactly what I was probably thinking in my mind too. Yeah.
So that was pretty funny, but I feel like when you have children, you definitely have to have some sort of idea on where you're trying to
Right.
set your kids up for,
Right.
you know, where you want them to be.
And if I would say, I think the other thing that I think I've always encouraged, you know, Kingston more so because he's 9. You know, Kobe he's about to be 2.
Yeah.
So you know,
he's
it's
like
a little harder to have, you know, those
heart-to-hearts.
conversations with a 2-year-old or about to be 2-year-old. But with Kingston, I think one of the other things that my wife and I really try to instill in him is work hard. You know, having a good work ethic is big. You know,
Especially now.
especially now. You know, there's and for myself, just having worked, you know, well over 10 years in youth development work and working with at-risk youth, there's a lot of kids you come in contact with that don't understand what it is to work hard, right? They expect everything to come easy. There's a sense of entitlement. And so for me, it rubs me the wrong way. So one of my big things is like, nothing comes easy. So my mom used to always tell us,
I love that
got to
one.
put in the work.
I love that one.
Gotta put in the
I think,
work.
and with that, like, honestly, I think that's generational. Like, I really feel like now it's a lot different than, like, I remember, like, my parents had some really interesting sayings, man. my parents had some really interesting sayings, and I remember this conversation I had with my mom. I talked to my mom a lot because, you know, I put her through the ringer a lot, and I remember one time she was like, you know, you can get anything you want if you can get he's like, you can have anything you want if you can get the money for it. And I was like, depending on how you look at that could go one or two ways. But
Absolutely.
I think that was more of her interpretation of hard work. Ma, I love you. Let me just put that out there. I love my mama.
Yeah, that can
I love
go
my daddy
either way.
too. I love them both. But you know, there's different ways that you can go with that. You know, and just thinking about it as a parent, you know, what's one of the biggest worries you have for, you know, your sons coming up?
So I think, you know, I thought, you know, in thinking about this particular question that you just posed, I think the right thing to say during, especially 2020, you know, year of COVID, year of the
Year
pandemic,
of everything.
right?
It's year of crazy.
but the year of where we have really seen things come full circle with like police brutality and all these different things. So I think the right thing to say in this moment would be, right, you're afraid that your son's gonna run into cops and that he's gonna be, you know, brutally mistreated or something along those lines. I think for me, my biggest fear is my son getting into the wrong company and into negative influences. I'll be honest with you. I believe that is more common than what we see happening in our world with police brutality. So my greatest fears is my son getting into the wrong group and the wrong crowd. I'll be honest with you. I don't necessarily have that sense of fear as it pertains to police. And don't get me wrong, it's a real issue, right? Mm-hmm. And for our young black men, don't get me wrong, it's a sense of concern for me. But I would say that my greatest fear is my son getting into the wrong crowd.
I love that, because when I was thinking about this, and this is like one of, like I always think about this. I always try to tell my sons, I'm like, listen, I'm like, if when you get to my age, you are where I am, I'm like, then I failed you as a parent. I'm like, my job is that when you get your family, you're better.
Right.
I always want you to be better. I always want you to be better.
Absolutely.
So when I think about it, I'm like, but the fact of the matter is, as a parent, you can do everything right.
Absolutely.
And your kids just go and do some wild stuff.
Very true.
And I think for me, like that is the thing that like scares me the most, is like you try to do everything, you know, that you know you should do. It's like, yo, I'm raising them right. I'm food on the table. I'm giving them the values. I'm giving them the morals. I'm telling them the things that they should do. And then it's just like, they just still go off and do what, like that for me is like, because as a parent, it's like, you're sitting there and you're thinking like, yo, but what did I do wrong? Like, what did I do wrong? Like, how is it that, because I've seen it where it's like you have kids who have no reason, no legitimate reason to go out and be acting like a fool.
Right.
And they could have the 2-parent household. They could be coming up in the greatest neighborhood. They could go to the best school, and still somehow, some way, it's like, yo, what happened? You know. So I think for me, like, get it, like police. There's definitely something there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You got good cops, you got bad cops. It's just a fact. You know, from where this society began, from where this country began, race has always been an issue. But I think for me, it's that piece of like doing the best that I can do, and yet still, it's like my children start wilding out and acting crazy.
Right, right. And I think negative influences and just bad company actually take our kids out more than
That's
police.
Huge.
That's
huge.
I just, and as I think about that, I could think of friends growing up and things like that, and their lives taking the trajectory that it did simply because of their connections. And so that's my thing is really, really teaching my son, one, to be a leader, right? And not to necessarily be a follower. And I think that so many young people suffer from that, right? It's you want to fit in. So in order to fit in, you'll sacrifice morals, you'll sacrifice, things that you shouldn't be doing to really be able to fit in with the crowd so that you're not looked at differently. And so that again, man, that's my biggest fear. And so one of the things we just try to teach him is be a leader, man. There's no need to follow what everybody else is doing. And I know that's hard because I've been there.
Especially not like now with Elisha being a teenager. Oh my God. Yo.
No, that's real. That's real.
It's like you have, and this is the thing, with school, it's like you can like have your kids at home with you for as much as you want and try to tell them everything that they need to like do, everything that they shouldn't do. But when they go to school, we fail to realize like our kids spend more time in school than they do at home. And when they're with those friends, like there's only so much that we can really control.
And that's a great point. It's true.
And I think with that, it's like there comes a point where we do as much as we can do, but then at some point we just gotta be like, yo, God, you gotta take care of these kids, because if you don't, like, yo, oh man,
and that's real. That right there, man. And I'll be honest with you. I think that there is, my mama's prayers saved me from a lot of things, man. My dad's prayers, I'm not gonna say she was the only one praying, but they both were praying for it. You know what I mean? But I'll be honest, man. There are some things that I look back at and I saw where I was going, and I can't necessarily tell you how I turned the corner, right? To not necessarily end up where I did, and I know it was God. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
No, but like seriously, like I think like with raising kids, there's just like only so much that we as parents really can do. It's like we're limited. We are limited. We try our best, but there's definitely that point. And I think that's where like faith really does play a really big role in there. Like, it's like, you got to protect my kids because, when they're out of our sight, like, it's like, yo, what can we do? Like, what can we do? We can yell at them. We can beat them. And it's like, it won't do nothing. Sometimes you just get those hard-headed kids. I know. I was a hard-headed kid. I know. It's like, okay, you can beat me. You can yell at me. And tomorrow I'm going to do the exact same thing, So I think, like, we just do as best as we can. And then, like, yo, God, like, yo, for real, like, yo, take care of these kids.
Yeah. No, I agree with that 100%, man. 100%.
Now, legacy is something that I feel like is really big for me, especially now and in like this season of my life. Like generational things, like you see how generational poverty can trickle from one generation to another. You see how you can have generational curses and, things that get taken on, and you look back and you're like, that, well, my granddaddy struggled with this and my great granddaddy struggled with this, and now I see I'm struggling with this and my son's struggling with this. Like, so if you could leave like one legacy for your children, just one thing that you was like, if I want it to be known for generations to come, what would that be and why?
That's a good question. It's so good of a question that it's hard to answer it with one thing.
Nah, you can only pick one though. You can only pick one.
If I could pick one, it would be love. And the reason why I say love is because I feel that love can change things.
It can.
We see it with Jesus' sacrifice on the cross, right? For most Christians, your transformation comes to the fact that you cannot wrap your head around reckless love.
I'll be honest with just that point right there. One of my, I always have these meditation moments where I'm like, Jesus, why me?
Right.
Because it's like, you look at it, it's like, but why though?
Right. And that's the biggest thing that I want to teach my son is to love. Right? Because I think that there's so much that you can do through that. You can change and transform a generation with love. We see in one, I'm a big supporter, big believer in Dr. Martin Luther King and his movement. And I believe that what we are now, like the world we can now live in today as Black people, has a lot to do with the fact that he preached love, right? Loving your enemies, right? Even though they don't do good to you, love them still.
That
right?
one hard.
And I just think that there's something powerful about that legacy, and there's not a day that passes, or there's not a time that passes within, Black History Month where I don't sit and reflect on how much love I think in a lot of ways has transformed our world. As we speak to the civil rights, in pertaining to the civil rights movement, right? I feel like it was such a key part, an intricate part of the civil rights movement. And for me, it's one of the things that I want to pass on to my son is love.
That right there was good. That right there was good. I like that. So for me, honestly, if I could think about one thing, like I would just wanna, for generation is like, if that, my great granddaddy Kenny is like, I think it would be integrity.
Right. That's good, man.
That it's good, but it's hard because
right.
with a lot of the things in a lot of the ways that society projects success and how you get it, it's not really about how you get it. It's that you get it.
Right.
You know, and I feel like, integrity is a missing, it really is a missing part of what we've become as a society. And if I could leave my children with that and they could pass that down, I think with that there's a lot of things that would go along with that would really change just the trajectory of where my bloodline could go.
Absolutely.
So I think for that's a big, I think that one is a really big one for me.
No, that's huge, man. And especially in a world that doesn't value integrity the way that we should, right?
Should it? And I feel like there was a time where it was more profound in how they would put it out there. That's something that they seems like it used to be stressed on. And then somewhere along the way, just integrity, no, you gotta get these billions. They're like, what?
However you do it, it doesn't even matter.
On a few people,
right.
It doesn't. You see these 9 zeros behind this number, and it's like, and I listened to a few podcasts, and I remember listening to one from Kevin on Stage, and he was like, they say, you can get 1 million, you can get to that 1 million point, but in order to be a billionaire, it's like you gotta do someone dirty, So it's with that, it's and I think that with me, that piece is you gain the whole world, you lose your soul. What it's worth,
right? Is it really worth it?
Is it really worth it?
Right.
It's you do everything you can to get all this, and then it's then it's it's done.
Yeah.
And then what do you have to show for it?
But how you get it, I believe, is just as important as getting there.
I think so too.
Yeah.
but there's a lot of people who don't.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Which is concerning.
Yep. Very much so. Because it's if you do all this for material things, it's in my mind, it's well, what won't you do though?
Right. And how do you truly enjoy it
Yeah.
when you get there?
Yeah.
If you've done so many dirty things to get,
you're like sitting on a beach in a mansion, and as you're sitting there and you're drinking your pina colada, do you think about like all of the people like, well, I had to,
yeah,
ruin so many people's lives because of this,
no,
So,
that's I don't see how people can enjoy it when they finally get there. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna run along. I know. I'm looking at the time, and I know people are like, "Oh my gosh, these guys are so deep." I promise you, we're not that serious.
No, not at all.
We're not.
But a great topic, though.
Yeah.
Soaking it up.
Yeah. So I'm gonna throw you a curveball, not yet, but I'm just gonna let you know. So just know it's coming.
Okay.
Just know you gotta be ready to. You gotta be ready to swing on.
I'm gonna be ready to swing,
All right.
man.
Does race play a role in some of the things that you teach your sons?
So I'm gonna say that for it not to, I think I'd be a horrible dad, right? To not at least have it play some part in what I instill in my son. Now, is it the first and foremost thing that I talk to him about? No. But it is a conversation that I have had, and that that I have had with him, and that I will continue to have. But that won't be the first thing, right? I feel like the race card can be one of those things that's thrown out quite often. It's because you're black.
It's because you're black.
That happened to you because you're black. You know what I'm saying? And I tend not to do that. And don't get me wrong, there are certain instances where the treatment you've received or why something didn't go the way that it should have gone can be because of the fact that of the color of your skin. So I will say that it, of course, absolutely, it has to play a role in what I instill in my son. Is it the first thing that I see as the utmost priority to instill in my son? No.
I think, well, in the past few years, there's just been like so many instances where it's like race has always come up. We see the countless,
right,
police brutality, the police shootings and things like that. And I think for me, I can't remember when the first time we really talked about Elisha about race was, but I think when we talk about it, it always spirals around work ethic.
Okay.
And excuse me. One of the things that, I remember my Uncle Timmy, God rest his soul, great man in my eyes. So I remember talking to one of my cousins, and he always had this saying. He's like, society already gives you 3 strikes. He's like, as a black man, you don't want to give them a third.
Right.
You don't let them give you a third. So it's like with the work ethic that we try to instill in our sons is the fact that, there's going to be people, as sad as it is, there's going to be people out there who, when they see you, before they see your merits, before they see what you can do,
right,
they're already going to have these preconceived notions about you.
Absolutely.
So with that in mind, you always have to put out your best.
Right.
You always have to work your hardest. You don't get the privilege of being mediocre, but you have to strive. You always have to strive to show your best.
Right.
And I think with that in mind, it just helps them to stay focused on, we want the best for you. And, there's a lot of people out there who don't. So you got to make sure that you're doing your best so that you can be successful.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think that is really how we go about the race piece, in spite of, all the things that are going on. We just have to prepare them to know, like, listen, it's like, there's going to be times where you're going to have to work twice as hard to get the same recognition. And that's no fault of your own. There may be people who see that black skin and feel threatened or don't like it, but, you're perfectly fine exactly how you are. You're amazing.
Right.
So I think with the race piece is just like reinstilling the fact that, you're still absolutely amazing, in spite of people who may think that you aren't because you're black.
Absolutely. And don't get me wrong in terms of what I said, because what I want to make sure people understand is what I tell my son is, dude, you're black and be proud that you're black. Like so there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That is who you are. Every time you look at yourself, every time you look at yourself in the mirror, you're a black boy, and you should be proud of that. And you should never allow what society is saying about young black boys to tear you down or to push you down. No. You were special. You should be proud of the fact that you're black. And so those are things that we want to make sure, Ebony and I want to make sure that our son really is fully aware of. For me, it's more so the idea of race doesn't dominate our conversations.
Yeah, and it should,
I think it
like,
can.
because,
Right.
and at the end of the day, like, there's so much other stuff you gotta
Right.
put inside of your kids.
Right.
So
right.
when you said, like, I know that's not the first thing, like, it definitely wasn't the first thing. It's like, you don't want it to always be about race.
Right.
You want to, there's so much other stuff
Right.
that we gotta
Absolutely.
give them.
Absolutely.
But, race is there, and it's definitely something that we, gotta one time or another, sadly enough, address. So
Yeah.
I think
Has to be a conversation.
Yeah. This one, you ready for the curveball?
I'm ready for the curveball.
This one, you're ready to swing. This one's a good one too. All right, so peep it. If you could pick one thing, just looking around in the world today, if you could pick one thing, one value, one lesson that you feel like men are missing in today's society, what would it be?
Oh man,
Yeah.
that's a curveball.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one coming. I didn't see that one coming.
I'm gonna tell you why I picked this one
ahead.
afterwards. You want me to tell you first? If I tell you first, I have to tell you my answer, and my answer, I think my answer is a pretty interesting one.
Let's go that way.
All right,
and then
all right. So
I'll
listen.
chime.
So just looking at society and things that I've seen going on recently. One thing that I feel like a lot of men and fellas, I'm not trying to down you. I promise you, it's not all of us. But there are some men out there, and it would seem like a good amount of men out there who I don't feel have been taught how to fully respect and value women.
Okay.
And the reason I say this is this. Like, I look at how, like, this recent case with this young girl from New Bedford who got kidnapped.
Okay. Yep.
And you see these instances time and time again where people are abducting these females and killing these females or beating up these females. And it's like, what in the world went wrong in these men to cause them to be able to do this?
Right.
What was it that they weren't told about, like, those relationships with the opposite sex that could get them to the point where they think, like, you know what, this is a good idea. And I feel like with that goes along with just thinking about my daughter coming up.
Right.
It's like, I look at it like, am I teaching my sons coming up?
Right.
Am I teaching them properly how to respect and treat women? And if I'm not, like, how is that going to affect them when they get older?
Right.
Are they and I think for me, that's like one, like, I just can't wrap my head around it. I can't wrap my head around how,
No, that's good.
as men, like, if you're supposed to be a man, and you're supposed to be, like, I always look at the men. Men are the protectors. Men are the shepherds. They're the shepherds of the household. They're the ones who's supposed to be able to lead in a way that allows their family to flourish. And it doesn't mean that the woman doesn't play her role in building the family together, but there's just a certain characteristic and a certain kind of, like, I can't even think of the word that I really want to use, but there's just a certain role that is irreplaceable from the man in the family.
Right.
And it's like, with that piece, it's like, what has not been instilled in these dudes that allows them to do these things to women?
It's I think there's a lot that comes with that, right? And as you got talking, I started to think about growing up in the 90s.
Growing up in the 90s is crazy.
And it's funny. And honestly, you know, there were days when I and as I got older and looking back at some of the music videos I used to watch and some of the stuff that I used to listen to and thank God for Jesus. But I look back at a lot of that stuff,
90s rap. 90s rap.
And it brings a great level of concern to me because of the way that women were portrayed, right? They, you know, and the fact that like we could listen to these songs where they were referred to as, you know what I'm saying.
Many different adjectives.
Right.
That.
Right. And I never want Kingston to ever think that those things are okay. Right. And I don't ever want him to think that that's how women should be treated. That's how they should be talked to. And that's how you should see them. Right. A woman is more than just the goodies that she shows.
That's
right?
a good one. You can say that again for the people in the back who are still sleeping. Tell them again. Tell them again.
A woman is more than just the goodies that they show. Right. And I think that to some, you know, for some strange reason in our world, we see women simply for that. We don't see them for the great qualities that they bring to the table, the great level of intelligence, right? The great leadership ability that they have, right? For so long, we've seen them literally as our toys, you know what I mean? Or whatever, however, you know what I mean?
Whatever the case may be.
Right, you know, and I want to keep it PG today.
Yes.
Keep it PG, right?
We got some young listeners.
You know, so it's I think that you're right. I mean, I think if anything, if we can instill in our young black boys how to treat women, right, to respect them, to love them, you know, I think that's so big. That's so important, and I feel like it'll make such a great impact. Yeah, I mean, one of the things for me that I think is so important, and I think just to piggyback on this, I think that how we treat them, how we talk to them, how we talk about them, etc., is really important. But one thing I would definitely talk to a lot of our black men about is that your wife, she's more than just the cook, right, and the cleaner. And I think my father-in-law said something the other day that was,
I think I'm the cleaner in my house. Don't tell me.
But it's more of the idea of like, you know, when we think of gender roles and we think, okay, that is your job. But the reality of it is that I want my son to understand and to know, like, you're supposed to come alongside your wife and help out, right? So it's not just her responsibility to wash clothes. I watched my dad cook. I watched my dad fold clothes, wash clothes. You know what I'm saying? I watched that stuff growing up, right? And so I think if anything, I would say to our young black men is like, no, you can do that stuff. You can cook. You should do that. You can wash clothes. You can do your daughter's hair. You know, at least try.
I'm working on that.
You can at least try.
God gonna have to give me that skill.
Yeah, man. Nah, it's real difficult. But thank God, shout out to one of my high school friends who taught me how to braid. I still think I know a little bit on how to braid.
I can braid my beard, but as far as actual decent ones,
I can't do cornrows, but I can get, I mean, so
the singles.
So God blesses me, if God blesses me with a little daughter, you know what I mean? Ebony, shout out, I'll braid her hair.
Get to work.
I'll put it in, you know what I mean? I don't know how good it'll look, but I'll make the effort and try, you know?
Hey, if at first you don't succeed,
try again.
Try again.
Yeah. But I hope I kind of answered your question a little bit with that.
Yeah, man. I know that was one that, I really just kind of sideball because it was on my mind. I was like watching, I get these like news updates and just seeing like some of the things that goes on. It's just heartbreaking because I feel like as men, not just black men, but men as general, man, there's a lot of things that we really kind of just let go. And we really just need to step up in certain areas, man. Like just in responsibility and expectations and integrity. Like integrity is something like big for me. Yeah. Because I feel like if there was more integrity among the men, I'm calling out the men. If there was more integrity among the men in our nation, in our world, then there's a lot better world that we can live in. So. All right, I think we're gonna wrap right there. I think we gotta leave it right there. We're gonna leave it right there. I really appreciate you coming out, and joining us on the potty. I
appreciate the invitation. Appreciate the topic. you know, I think it's definitely a topic that, you know, that our young black men need. You know, and I'm sure that there's so much more conversation that needs to take place. But hey, man,
this is step one.
We started it today.
Step one. Right. There can always be a part 2, part 3, until we feel like we done. So shout out to all the listeners and all the subscribers. We thank you for joining us this week. And, you know, remember death in life is in the power of your tongue. So make sure that you
speak life.
Speak life. Have an amazing week. Don't forget to check out the book, When Three Roads Collide, on all your online platforms.
Gotta get it.
Have a great week.